The crowd was thick that day. People pushed forward just to get closer to Jesus. Some wanted healing, some wanted answers, some just wanted to see miracles with their own eyes. But among the crowd stood one man who wasn't there out of curiosity. His name was Jairus. He was not a poor fisherman. He was not a beggar. He was not unknown. He was a synagogue leader, respected, honored, powerful. But none of that mattered anymore. Because at home, his little girl was dying, 12 years old, his only daughter. Her laughter had once filled the house, her footsteps had once run through the halls. Now the house was silent, her breathing was weak, her body was burning with fever, and every moment felt like the last. Doctors had tried, prayers had been whispered, friends had offered comfort. Nothing changed. Jairus had heard about Jesus. He had heard the stories, the blind seeing, the lame walking, the sick restored, but asking him for help, that meant swallowing his pride. Religious leaders did not kneel in public, they did not beg traveling teachers, but when death is knocking at your door, pride becomes meaningless. Jairus pushed through the crowd, people complained as he forced his way forward. Finally, he saw him, Jesus, and in front of everyone. Jairus fell to his knees, the synagogue ruler, the respected leader, on the ground. "Please," he whispered, "my little daughter is dying. Come and put your hands on her, so that she will be healed and live." The crowd went silent. This was no small request, this was life or death, and Jesus looked at him, not with judgment, not with hesitation, but with compassion, and without saying much, Jesus began to walk toward Jairus' house. Hope began to rise in the father's heart. Maybe it was not too late, but what Jairus did not know, was that before they would reach his house, everything would seem to fall apart. Jairus walked close behind Jesus. Every second felt heavy, every step felt slow. He kept thinking about his daughter. Was she still breathing? Was she calling for him? Was she scared? He wanted to run, but Jesus moved through the crowd at a steady pace. And then, everything stopped. Jesus suddenly paused. He turned. "Who touched me?" he asked. The disciples looked confused. "Master, the crowd is pressing against you from every side. Everyone is touching you." But Jesus shook his head. "No, someone touched me differently. Power has gone out from me." Jairus' heart dropped. "Not now, please, not now." A woman slowly stepped forward, her hands trembled, her voice cracked. She fell at Jesus' feet and confessed. For 12 years, she had suffered from bleeding, 12 years of pain, 12 years of rejection, 12 years of spending everything she had on doctors, and she was not better, she was worse. She had told herself, "If I just touch the edge of his garment, I will be healed." And she had. Instantly, she felt the sickness leave her body. The crowd watched in awe. Jesus looked at her with gentleness. "Daughter," he said, "your faith has healed you. Go in peace." The people whispered, "Another miracle, another testimony, another celebration." But Jairus was not celebrating, because while Jesus was speaking, time was passing, precious time. Jairus stood frozen. He didn't want to interrupt, he didn't want to seem selfish, but inside, panic was rising. Every second mattered. And then, he saw them, men from his house. Their faces were pale, their eyes avoided his. They walked toward him slowly, too slowly, and before they even spoke, Jairus knew, the worst had happened. One of them finally said the words, "Your daughter is dead." The world stopped. Don't trouble the teacher anymore. It was over, too late. The crowd grew quiet again. Some looked at Jairus with pity, some with sadness, some with that painful look people give when there is nothing left to say. Hope had lasted only moments, now it was gone, but Jesus heard the words too, and before despair could fully consume Jairus, Jesus turned to him, and said something that would change everything. Jesus looked straight into Jairus' eyes, not at the crowd, not at the messengers, at him. "Don't be afraid," he said quietly, "only believe." Only believe. His daughter was dead. How do you believe when the worst already happened? But something in Jesus' voice carried authority, not loud, not dramatic, certain. Jairus swallowed his fear, and nodded. He chose to walk. Jesus stopped the crowd from following. No noise, no chaos, only Peter, James, and John were allowed to continue. Sometimes miracles don't happen in crowds, they happen in private. They walked toward Jairus' house, every step heavier than the last. When they arrived, the house was loud, crying, wailing, mourners already gathered. It felt final, it felt finished. Jesus stepped inside and said, "Why all this commotion? The child is not dead. She is sleeping." They laughed, mocked him, because from their view, death was obvious, but heaven saw differently. Jesus put them all outside. Doubt had no place in that room, fear had no voice there, only the parents remained, and 3 disciples, and silence, heavy silence. The little girl lay still, no movement, no breath, no life. Jairus felt his heart shatter again. Jesus walked to the bedside, and took her hand, not rushed, not dramatic. Jesus spoke softly, "Talitha koum." Little girl, arise. The words were simple, but they carried resurrection. Heaven touched earth in that moment. Her fingers moved, her chest rose, her eyes opened, color returned to her face, life flowed back into her body. Jairus gasped, his wife began to cry, this time with joy. The impossible had just happened. The room was frozen, shock, wonder, tears. Jesus calmly said, "Give her something to eat." As if this was normal, as if death was nothing, faith had won. Jairus fell to his knees, not because he was weak, but because the weight of fear that crushed him moments ago was suddenly lifted. He had walked beside Jesus with doubt in his chest. He had heard people say, "It's too late." He had almost believed them, but now, his daughter was standing, breathing, alive. Tears rolled down his face, not of pain, but of relief. He finally understood something powerful. It is never too late for the one who created time. When Jesus said, "Don't be afraid. Only believe," he didn't explain how, he didn't show proof, he didn't argue with the bad news, he simply asked for faith, and faith feels hardest, when everything looks finished, when doors close, when reports say final. When hope looks foolish, but real faith is not believing after you see the miracle, it is believing before. Jairus walked in darkness, but light was already walking beside him. Think about that walk to the house. Every step was heavy, every second felt like judgment, people whispering, mourners already gathering. From the outside, it looked like a man walking toward heartbreak, but from heaven's view, he was walking toward a miracle. Sometimes your worst moment is actually the road to your greatest testimony, you just can't see it yet. When Jesus said, "She is sleeping," they laughed, mocked him, ridiculed the possibility. People laugh at what they don't understand. They laughed because they saw death. Jesus saw delay. They saw the end. Jesus saw the beginning. Never let the laughter of doubters silence the voice of faith in your heart, because miracles often begin where logic ends. Jesus didn't shout, he didn't perform for the crowd, he simply took her hand. There is something powerful about his touch. He touches the untouchable, he restores what others have written off. He breathes life into what looks cold and finished. The moment he touched her hand, death lost its authority, because where he stands, fear retreats, and where he speaks, life answers. Jesus removed the crowd, only a few were allowed inside. Why? Because doubt is loud, faith is quiet. Sometimes God will clear the room around you, before he moves in your life. Not everyone is meant to stand in the place where your miracle is born. The silence in that room wasn't emptiness, it was preparation. Talitha koum. Just 2 simple words, but heaven moved. The creator of the universe spoke gently to a little girl. No thunder, no drama, just authority wrapped in love, and the moment he spoke, life returned. Never underestimate the power of one word from God, it can restart what stopped. Jairus stood there watching. Hours earlier he was terrified, now he was witnessing glory. What changed? Not the situation, the presence. Fear screams, what if it fails? Faith whispers, What if he moves? And when you choose faith, even shaking faith, you step into the impossible. Maybe your prayer feels delayed, maybe you're standing in your own hallway, waiting for Jesus to arrive. You think it's over, you think it's too late, but this story proves something powerful. Delay is not denial. God is never late, he arrives at the moment that will reveal his power the clearest. Jesus told them not to spread the news immediately. Why? Because not every miracle is meant to be shouted at first. Some blessings grow in quiet places, some victories are personal. God doesn't move to impress crowds, he moves to transform hearts, and Jairus' heart was never the same again. Before this day, Jairus was a synagogue leader, respected, educated, structured, but Christ stripped all titles away. He didn't come to Jesus as a leader, he came as a father. Sometimes pain removes pride, so faith can be born, and that broken walk turned into the strongest testimony. Imagine believing, while everyone else prepares for a funeral. It looks foolish, it feels embarrassing, but faith often looks irrational, before it becomes undeniable. People may doubt you now, but one touch from God can silence every voice. Here's the truth, the miracle was walking with Jairus, from the very beginning, before the bad news arrived, before the crowd laughed, before the room was silent, Jesus was already on the way. And maybe that's the word for you, your answer is already moving, even if you can't see it. The world says, it's finished. But heaven says, watch me. Death doesn't scare Jesus, loss doesn't limit him, hopelessness doesn't intimidate him. He specializes in final situations, and when he steps into your too late, he rewrites the ending. If Jairus had stopped walking, when they said, it's over, he would have missed the miracle. Keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting, even when your steps feel heavy, because the road you fear the most may be the road where God reveals himself the clearest. Right now, you might be standing in front of something that looks finished, a broken relationship, a closed door, a dream that feels buried, but this story proves one powerful truth: what looks final to people is not final to God. Your chapter isn't over. He hasn't written the last line yet. Before the miracle became public, it happened in a quiet room, no crowd, no applause, just Jesus and the impossible. Sometimes God works in hidden places, before he reveals it openly. If nothing seems to be happening in your life, it doesn't mean he's absent, it might mean he's preparing. Let's be honest, Jairus probably doubted, he probably feared the worst. Faith isn't always bold and loud, sometimes faith is trembling hands, holding on to hope, and that's enough. You don't need perfect faith, you just need to keep walking toward him. The crowd laughed, they mocked the idea of hope. Noise is everywhere, social media, opinions, negative voices. If you listen to every voice, you will lose your peace. Jesus removed the noise before he performed the miracle. Maybe it's time you remove some noise too. There is a moment when everything feels too late to fix it, too late to recover, too late to believe again. That's exactly where Jairus stood, and that's exactly where Jesus proved his power. Your too late is God's perfect entrance. Jairus was a leader, but in that moment, he could do nothing. Sometimes God allows situations that humble our strength, not to hurt us, but to show us who truly holds the power. When you run out of options, you finally discover his. Think about this, Jairus didn't walk back home alone, Jesus walked beside him, even before the miracle. And maybe you don't see it now, but you're not walking alone either. He's beside you in the hallway, in the hospital room, in the silent nights. You are not abandoned. Waiting is uncomfortable, it stretches your heart, it tests your patience, but waiting is never wasted. When Jesus is involved, the delay builds depth, the silence builds trust, and the waiting season prepares you for a stronger testimony. Notice something powerful: the miracle didn't just raise the girl, it transformed the father. Sometimes the blessing you're asking for isn't just about the outcome, it's about who you become in the process. God is shaping you while you're praying. Even if the situation looks lifeless, even if the voices say it's over, even if the room feels empty, trust him, because when Jesus speaks, dead things rise. And when he walks into your story, nothing stays impossible. Jesus didn't shout, he didn't perform a show, he simply reached out and took her by the hand. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't come with noise, they come with a gentle touch, and maybe right now, he's reaching for you. 1 second the room was filled with sorrow, the next second, life returned. That's how quickly God can turn things around. What feels permanent today can change in a single moment. Don't underestimate sudden miracles. Jairus left his house in fear, he returned in awe. The same house, the same people, but everything changed. The place where you cried might soon be the place you celebrate. This wasn't just about a child, it was about a father's broken heart. God cares about your heart too, not just your situation, not just your request, but the weight you carry inside. He sees it. What if your dead situation isn't dead? What if it's waiting for his touch? Your dream, your marriage, your purpose. Don't bury what God can restore. After this moment, Jairus would never be the same. When God moves in your life, it leaves a mark, it builds unshakable faith, and one day, you will tell this story to strengthen someone else. All it took was his words, "Little girl, arise." That same voice still speaks today. It speaks into depression, it speaks into fear, it speaks into hopelessness, and when he speaks, things shift. The crowd laughed at hope, but hope won. People may mock your faith, they may call you unrealistic, but hope anchored in God is never foolish, it's powerful. Jairus didn't know how close he was to breakthrough, he only knew he was desperate. Sometimes breakthrough is one step away. While you feel like giving up, hold on, you might be closer than you think. Harsha, Part 36, The Hand That Lifts. Jesus didn't shout, he didn't perform a show, he simply reached out and took her by the hand. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't come with noise, they come with a gentle touch, and maybe right now, he's reaching for you. 1 second the room was filled with sorrow, the next second, life returned. That's how quickly God can turn things around. What feels permanent today can change in a single moment. Fear was already there, doubt was already there, but faith walked in too, and faith was stronger. When you invite Jesus into your situation, fear loses authority. Even if the world says it's over, faith says it's not finished. That little girl's story looked finished, but it wasn't. If you're still breathing, God is still writing. What feels like an ending may only be a chapter break. Don't close the book when God is still turning pages. This isn't just an old story, it's a reminder, the same power that lifted that child is available today, for your home, for your family, for your future. You are not forgotten, you are not unseen, and your situation is not impossible. If Jesus could walk into a room full of doubt and bring life back, he can walk into your storm and bring peace. He can walk into your failure and bring restoration. He can walk into your brokenness and bring healing. So don't give up, don't lose faith, stand firm, because what looks dead today can rise tomorrow, and may your life shine brighter than ever.